This is January 13th, 2021, and this is Sandra, Lafky, Carlson at the Tualatin Heritage Center in Tualatin, Oregon with Michael Upton. And we are recording an oral history of a fellow who has lived a long time in Tualatin, and he's going to share some of his experiences with us. So Mark, could you give us your full name and how many years you've been in Tualatin?
My name is Mark Gensman. I moved to Tualatin with my mom and dad in 1954. I was born in 48 in Portland. We lived in Lake Grove, and in 1954 we moved from Lake Grove to Tualatin, just on the other side of the Tualatin River Bridge, up where the fork, at the time, Boone's Ferry and Lower Boone's Ferry Road was. We lived there. And we lived there until 1962, I believe, when Mom and Dad built a house on the other side of town up off of Avery and 93rd. And I lived up there from 62 to 67 when I went into the service. And then came back. Didn't move to Tualatin in the 70s when I got out of the service, but I worked in Tualatin. I got my real estate license at Tualatin. Worked at Metro West. Started a deli with my sister. Worked for my dad, who had a company in Tualatin. Anyway, just stayed and been very active in Tualatin since, and then left town again in 1976.
Oh, excuse me, was the cafe here in Tualatin that you and your sister?
Was it what?
You and your sister had a cafe?
Yeah, we started a cafe called Dagwoods Deli.
Oh, was that here?
That was in Tualatin, yeah. That was down by where the, actually where the pond is now. The Dairy Queen was down there, and we were right in the building next to the Dairy Queen, which also was the real estate office. And at the end of that building, we put the deli in. And we did quite well, actually. And then my sister, I sold my half to my sister, Randy, and she started, she bought the auto parts store next door and wound up, she had like 10 full-time employees. She was catering all the big rock and roll shows that showed up down at the Paramount. And she did quite well. So it really expanded after I sold my half to her. And then I hit the road. I was on tour with a band from 76 to right after 1980. So I was gone. I back out.
What was the name of that band?
That band was called North Shore. That was a 6-piece show band doing, we did 36 Weingartner Hammond's Holiday Inns. That's back in the disco days, the Holiday Inns. A lot of fun. We had a good time.
What instrument did you play?
I've been playing sax since 1959. Started at Tualatin grade school, in fact, in the 5th grade when they started their band program. And been playing ever since until actually this last year when I finally realized I was old and I retired.
And so you went to Tualatin grade school, the old one.
I went to Tualatin grade school, 1st grade, 1954, the old school, yeah, on Boone's Ferry. And I went there until the 6th grade, and then that's when everybody did the split, and half the kids went to Sherwood, and half the kids went to Tualatin, which was the first year at Tualatin Junior High. I went up there, and then from Tualatin, matriculated down to Tiger High. So, yeah.
And you said your favorite teacher in grade school?
Oh, I just remember Mrs. Bancroft, my 2nd grade. Yeah, she was one of my favorites. I really liked her a lot. And actually had a lot of fun at Tualatin grade school. My dad, for some reason, and this will come up in a minute, but my dad was clever enough. He bought a gas range and he put it in our garage where we lived up on Boone's Ferry Road. And so somehow we found all these lead soldier molds. And so we would go to all the gas stations, there was only 2 of them or 3 of them, Hannigan's and some of the other gas stations, and get their old wheel weights and take them back to the garage, put them in a big cast iron pot, and melt this lead down, take the metal pieces out of it, melt the lead down, and we made lead soldiers. And I had like 200 lead soldiers. And I would take these lead soldiers all up to Tualatin grade school, and my friends and I, we would be outside playing army games with all these lead soldiers. It was very cool. We had probably, I can't remember, but there was probably 12 different soldiers, and we just kept pouring them and making them and pouring them. And I mean, I'm surprised I don't have lead poisoning. I thought about that. I mean, it's like when we used to break thermometers and, you know, coat pennies with them and make them dimes. You know, I'm surprised we all survived back then. But anyway, that was fun. That was Tualatin grade school. That's one of my fondest memories of going to grade school. With that and Mr. Brown, John Brown, the principal, calling me into his office and hitting this vinyl chair with a ruler. Instead of hitting the kids, he hit that chair. It just scared the hell out of you. And you quit doing whatever it was you were doing really quickly when he did that.
And then you went to Tiger.
Went to Tualatin Junior High. After Tualatin grade school, went to Tualatin Junior High. I played in bands. I started in the band at the 5th grade at Tualatin. Played in the band there, and then I went up to Tualatin and I played in, I can't remember, they had 1 or 2 bands. They had an honor band, and anyway, I played in the bands there. And then I went to Tigard and I played in the pep band. We played for all the games. I was in the marching band briefly, but I played in the advanced band and the jazz band, the stage band. So I played all the music programs they had. I played, and then in my sophomore year at Tigard, I think I was playing Louie Louie while the band was trying to do something else. And Mr. Bell, the band director, kicked me out of the band. And at the time I was in a big rock and roll band. We had a big hit. We were on Kissin' Radio. We were playing big shows, making actually really good money back then. And so he came to me and he said, if you promise to be good, I'll let you back in the band. And I looked at him, I said, I really don't need the Tigard High School band anymore. So that was the end of my band career at the schools, but I was out. We were traveling and playing and doing the Memorial Coliseum and playing just big shows, and had a hit record out, signing autographs and all that. It was fun. It was a lot of fun.
What was the name of the record?
It's called Draft Time Blues. It was by the Midnight Suns. That was my, and it was a big regional hit. We were on Kissin' Radio. Nothing more fun than dragging the gut in my 60 Pontiac up and down Broadway and having our hit song come on Kissin' Radio. Well, you got your arm around your girlfriend and that comes on the radio. That was very cool. It was a very heady experience. And that lasted up until '67 when I went in the service, and they, of course, immediately whacked all that ego out of you, But then I started a band in the Navy, and I played all over Asia on a ship, and I played in a band in Guam for a year, rock and roll band. Anyway, just played. Music's been a big part of my life. I've been playing almost in spite of everything else I've done to make a living, because you don't make a living playing music, but everything I've done to make a living has kind of been to support my music habit. So, yeah, it's been fun.
And you have your business now.
Well, I have a recording studio now. Up until a year ago, I was running sound too. I was doing 7 or 8 big 3-day bluegrass festivals for the last 20 years, and some rock and roll stuff. And I've had my recording studio, and that's been relatively busy, but of course now everything's stopped. It's just gone away. I've got a couple of clients. I'm still doing some stuff in the studio, but I've sold all my sound equipment. I'm not doing that at all anymore. I got rid of everything because it just it just went away. They're just not doing it. So I figured it was time, and I was getting tired of loading and unloading, and so. But yeah, that was fun. I mean, I met a lot of people. My ex-wife was in the bluegrass community, and they're an interesting bunch, and it was kind of fun to hang with them. So I did that for a long time. Anyway, now I just stay close to home. I've still got my studio, so I still have some studio clients, but it's very low-key stuff. You know, guy comes in, he's got 4 or 5 songs he wants to record, have some kind of a legacy, you know, to leave the kids and leave his family and stuff. So we'll do that. I got a guy coming in next week that's got 4 songs that he's written that he has no music, no backing tracks, no nothing, but he's got the melodies. He can sing them. So I can record him and run him through my software, and the software will actually create chorded backing tracks for him so we can make charts, and he can then send them off to professional musicians and have actual sheet music made or have actual recordings made with written, documented backing tracks. So I do that, stuff like that. It's fun. It's really fun.
Uh-huh. And your business is GZ Sound.
GZ Sound, Ground Zero Sound. Yeah. I started that in probably 81, 82 when I got off the road. I started another band almost immediately, and it was Ground Zero. So I had to call the studio something. We did some recording, so called it Ground Zero Sound. It's been Ground Zero Sound ever since.
And do you still play the sax?
No, I've actually retired from playing. It got to be, I love to rehearse, I love to jam with my friends, but it got to be really, really hard physically to go out and do, 4 hours of rock and roll. Yeah. It just got hard to do, and packing up all the equipment and setting up. I had all the PA equipment, pack the van, take it out, set it up, play 4 hours, tear it down, bring it home. I mean, you're putting in a 8 to 10 hour day. And the problem is now is that all these musicians, I mean, everybody plays for nothing. They just want to go out and get some exposure. So, you got 60 years of experience practicing your craft, and, you're not getting paid as much as a guy pumping gas. So it was like, what is the point? Why am I doing this? So I just hung it up, sold one horn. I still have a 1927 horn for sale, which I will sell. And then
you're getting rid of.
Yeah, I'm not going to play anymore. I'm tired. It's been a long time.
I was hoping that in the future, if we have an event at the Historical Society, you'd play for us.
No, probably not. Yeah, it's a lot of work is the trouble. It takes a lot of energy. It takes, you're on your feet, breathing, and again, all the setup that it requires. And I mean, of course, now I can walk in with my horn and stand up and play and walk out. And that's not that hard to do. But yeah, I got frustrated with the whole thing after doing it for so long. Yeah. I mean, we got paid more money in the 60s and 70s, mostly in the 70s. Bands made good money. I made really good money in the show band. Up until 81, but it just seems like now it's just horrible. And I know guys that are just marvelous musicians that, they can't make $100 a night playing for 3-4 hours. And
are you talking about right now the pandemic?
No, not the I mean, before pre-pandemic. Right now they can't get arrested. They can't play at all, which I feel terrible. I have some friends who are national musicians, national recording musicians, and they're doing everything they can to survive. They're putting on virtual concerts, and they're trying to get, you GoFundMe and all, a lot of support from people like that. That's really hard. These are guys that have been touring, and they're, playing national, big, huge festivals, And now that's all gone, and I feel sorry for him, you know. I think I got out when the getting was good, because it really hasn't affected me at all. But I retired right before the pandemic, and now I think that's a good thing. And sold all my gear back when people still wanted gear, when they were still buying stuff. So, yeah. So now it's just recording. I have a nice studio, and I can do it at my own speed, my own pace. So, yeah.
Tell us a bit about your dad, because he was very involved in Tualatin.
Yeah, Dad was a really interesting guy.
And his name?
Lee Gensman. And he was an engineer. He was in the Navy. He went to Cornell, and then he was up at the Bremerton shipyards. He always told us he was the captain of the head. Yeah, which is a Navy joke. But very, very intelligent man. He came back, and I'm not sure where they lived originally when they first got married, but he wound up at Northwest Marine Iron Works in Portland. He's one of the designers of the zoo train, if you've ever seen that zoo train. Dad did that. If you ever go up over McKenzie Pass out of Eugene, clear up at the top, there's a great big plaque up in the lava field up there from Benson High School. Dad was the treasurer of Benson and signed the check for that plaque that's up there on McKenzie Pass. Anyway, he was with Northwest Marine Iron Works, and then L&M, and anyway, he was a kind of a hydraulic guy. And I remember going around with Mom and Dad back when I was probably 10, 11, 12. He would go to sawmills because he designed the hydraulic systems for the hydraulic saws. I remember we went down to, when I was really probably 13, we went down to Phoenix, Arizona, because he had designed a machine for Purina feeds that made Presto logs out of cattle feed. So it held up in the wintertime. It didn't get all soggy and wet and everything. Anyway, it was a big piston-driven thing, and he designed that. So we went down there. And I just remember we stayed in a motel by the stockyards, which is probably the smelliest thing I've ever seen in my life. But that was, again, I was really young. But then when we moved up here, I mean, when we moved to Tualatin, Dad got involved with local politics. There was only 350 people in town when we moved to Tualatin, so it was a really little town. And in I think it was 1966, he ran for mayor, unopposed. And kind of what had happened at the same time was, like a buddy of mine, Kenny Strand, and we were playing along the creek right along, which is now Hall Boulevard, but the creek that runs down into the river at the bridge. We were playing along that creek, and Kenny saw what he said, look, an artesian spring, and he took a drink out of it. I said, no, that can't be right. Anyway, Kenny almost died. He got typhoid fever. He was put in the hospital, lost all his hair, really sick, and nearly died. And what that did was that kind of shut down. They realized that all these septic tanks along the creek were just dumping into the creek. We'd been swimming in the river where that creek dumps into the river. I mean, right there at the affluent from that river. So anyway, Dad kind of made that a sort of a goal that he wanted to fix. And also we had well water. We had, the Tualatin had wells for water. So anyway, Dad ran unopposed, unpaid job, volunteer. He hired Yvonne Addington, who everybody knows. And then he started making deals. The dog food factory was in Tualatin, and it was stinky. It smelled horribly. It was horse meat, and anyway, it was an awful, smelly place. So there was a big push to get them to do some kind of tertiary sewage treatment process going. And so Dad got together with Jason Hervin from the dog food factory and Harvey Van Raden, who owned Peerless Truck and Trailer, which is right up on the left side of the bridge. And the three of those guys managed to get the connection through Lake Grove for Portland City Water to come to Tualatin. And they got the sewage, Unified Sewage Agency, got the sewer system put in. Because before that, they wouldn't let anybody build. I mean, you couldn't build any more houses because they wouldn't let any more septic tanks go in. There was no water. We kept, the wells were running dry in the summertime. So anyway, Dad was very instrumental in bringing in Portland City Water and City Sewer, which all of a sudden opened Tualatin up to expansion. And from that point on, it started to grow. And so Dad was very involved in Tualatin politics. Mom was a PTA president. I think she said 4 or 5 times. She finally quit because she said she got pregnant every time she ran for president. So she finally quit. She was really active in the school district up at the Tualatin grade school. And then they started the Tualatin Businessman's Group, which was a group of local business people, some attorneys and store owners and people like that, to get some kind of a group together that would support the local businesses.
Was that the Booster Club?
It was the Tualatin Businessmen's Club. Okay. That was way before the Booster Club. It became the Tualatin Chamber of Commerce, but this is precursor to the Tualatin Chamber of Commerce. So they started that, and it was kind of a business advocacy group. And that was in the, I think that was in the 70s. I'm not sure exactly the dates that they started all that, but I was working, I got my real estate license. I'd gotten out of the Navy. I worked for my dad at a company that he owned in Tualatin here for a little while. Mom, in the meantime, had been working for Tigard Realty in Tigard, and she decided to start her own real estate company in Tigard and in Tualatin. And so she started Metro West Realty with a gal named Marie Riley. And those two women absolutely tore up the real estate market in Tigard and Tualatin. They were unbelievably successful. And so she had her office in Tualatin. So I got I think it was in I'd done other things, but I think in 1973 I got my real estate license, and I went to work for her, kind of part-timey, but I sold real estate in Tualatin from 73 or so to 76, and then when I got out of the 6-piece show band, came back home in 81, I got my broker's license, and I went back to work for her, and I worked for her until I think it was 95. I did commercial industrial real estate here in Tualatin. In fact, the last big deal I ever did was the Nyberg Road, from the Shell station all the way down to the 7-Eleven. That was the last deal I did, I think. Yeah, sold that to a developer. The Montessori school, the old, it used to be the DMV building now, down where the, I think the DMV building is now where the Meridian Pet people are. But at any rate, that was the last real estate deal I did.
Is that still Nyberg Property?
No, no, Nyberg sold that.
Oh, okay.
He's ground leased, the family has ground leased everything else. They've been remarkably very, very brilliant business people. But no, the Cabela's and the, over in the Best Buy, that's all ground leased to Nyberg's. But no, they sold the property across the street. And I'm not sure that they didn't keep the wetland down behind it. I don't know if they still own that or not. But yeah, originally that was all their stuff. And yeah, the Nyberg family is very, very industrious. They've done a great job. Very neat people. I know Arnie Nyberg. But I knew Clayton. I mean, Clayton came in the real estate office all the time, kind of mostly to just pick our brains and see what was going on and stuff. But he'd ride his tractor over. Very nice. But anyway, that's what Mom and Dad did. They got very active in Tualatin politics. So they were on the budget committee, and I got involved in the Crawfish Festival back in the 70s. Actually, I got involved when we first moved here. I was probably 10 years old, which would have been in 1958. We used to catch crawfish for the Crawfish Festival for the vets, VFW people who started it, out of the river. That's what all of us kids did. We'd go down and catch crawfish and take them to the VFW hall for the Crawfish Festival. And then in the 70s, I was in a band, and I wanted to play for the Crawfish Festival, so I became entertainment chairman for the Crawfish Festival for many years. And that's back when you could have fun at a festival. They screened off in the Tualatin Park, they screened off the overpass. And so everything that was, what would that be, north of the overpass, we fenced. And they turned that into a beer garden. And I had 2 big flatbed trailers brought in, and we had non-stop music going all day long. And the Lions Club brought in a beer truck, and they sold beer like crazy. And I mean, we'd put 1,500, 1,800 people in there, and it was a ball. That's back, they had the tricycle rides where you had to drink a beer and then you rode your trike and you wound up in the river, the last phase of the tricycle ride. But all that stuff you can't do anymore. But it was fun, so I did that for a number of years. Probably until, late 76, right about when I left with my show band. And then I got involved in the Crawfish Festival again in the 80s and helped with entertainment at that time. And then again in the 90s, my band played for the Friday night kickoff concert. I think we played down there 6 years in a row. They had like 4,000 people show up 1 year, 2 years, and just had a ball. It was great. We played down there and had fun. And then I was on the Crawfish Festival committee when the city just dropped all support of any kind. We had a local businesswoman that owned the pharmacy here in town that complained heavily about having to lose all of her business on one Saturday a year because of the parade. She just roared. So the city said, okay, well, from now on, you can only have the parade around the dog food factory. And all of us that were on the Crawfish Festival committee that had been working on it for years, we just said, sorry, we're done, and we just got up and walked out. And that's when the chamber took it over and did very well. And now, of course, now it's all just it's just a commercial enterprise now. I mean, I haven't gone, I don't even bother going down there. But yeah, it was fun. The Crawfish Festival used to be a really cool family, local.
Yeah, I remember from when I was a child, it was like just a big community picnic in the old park.
Yeah. Yeah, the parade was fun. I mean, people used to come down. We had, I remember Metro West Realty, we had always had some kind of a convertible float with somebody in it, and yeah, I mean, it was really fun. All the people would come out. That's the problem too, is, I mean, back then you knew everybody. We all knew everybody pretty much. Yeah. And it was a really different environment. We'd go down, I remember being a kid, go down and sit at the feed store, George Summers feed store, the old brick building down there. And we'd sit out there on a bale of hay all day long and watch, all the traffic, the 4 cars a day went through Tualatin. And it was fun, I mean, you could go, you walk around town. It was great growing up. You never worried about your kids. Yeah. I mean, we'd ride our bikes. It was like, get outside, just go. Yeah. I want you home by dinner time, be here by 6.
Yeah, it was a movable feast from one backyard to another.
Yeah, and then downtown, there was no, again, hardly any traffic, so, we just had the run of the town. We knew everybody. I mean, I remember I got caught, and I can't remember the name of the grocery store. They call it the White grocery store, but it was right next to May's Cafe.
Oh.
For some reason, the name of the...
Well, the Garrett's.
Garrett's.
They had,
I got caught stealing a candy bar out of Garrett's grocery store.
Oh, what happened?
I was severely punished. I had to wash the windows, all of the windows of that store, I think every day for a week.
Oh.
Never stole candy bar again, ever. But I remember that. But I could not remember the name of Garrett for some reason.
Yeah, Owen and Roma Garrett.
Yeah, nice people, great store. It was cool. But then, then the market moved. They moved over to the Clark Lumber site over there. That was the store over there for a while. And the Clark Lumber people, I did a lot of work with them when I was doing real estate. Still know Jerry. I was sorry to hear Harvey died. But yeah, we knew them well. Max Clark was in the office quite a bit. We did a lot of real estate with Max. Just neat people. I mean, you knew everybody. You walk around and you could say hi to just about anybody. And it was fun. It was a neat little town to grow up in. And again, there was 350, 60 people.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like anything like today. I mean, I think it had to be in probably 60 or 61, I started taking saxophone lessons in downtown Portland at Patert's Music House on 10th, Southwest 10th. Here I am, 12 years old, alto sax. I'd walk down from our house to downtown Tualatin. I'd get on the Tualatin Valley Blue Bus. And I think it was like 8 o'clock in the morning, something like that. It took an hour and 15 minutes to get to Portland. Get 4th Avenue in downtown Portland. I would walk from the old courthouse, 4th Avenue, up to 10th and Morrison, and take my sax lesson, my hour sax lesson. And then I had to wait all day to get the bus back. There's only one bus in, one bus out. So I went to the buttermilk corner, which was all the buttermilk you could drink for a dime. And I'd sit in there, have a donut, drink buttermilk. I went to the Circle Star and the Blue Mouse Theater, which is where all the bums hung out, sleeping in the aisles there. But it was $1 for movies all day long. So I'd go hang out in there. I'd go across the street to the Galleria, which had self-serve elevators. But I memorized the store, so I pretended to be the elevator boy. And I would spend probably an hour and a half or 2 hours in there asking people, lingerie? 3rd floor. Pretending to be the elevator. Because I had nothing else to do, And then here I am, 12 years old. I'd get on the Tualatin Valley Blue Bus, spend my hour and a half ride back to Tualatin, and get home and probably, get into town at 6 o'clock at night and walk, the half mile, 3/4 mile back up to the house. Nobody, would I let a 12-year-old do that today? I mean, there's no way in the world you would let a 12-year-old kid take a bus by themselves, especially carrying an instrument, into downtown Portland and then spend the entire day in Portland and come home. But that, those days, that's what we did. And it was, I never had a problem. I never got harassed. I never got hassled. Yeah. And eventually I wound up in a band in downtown Portland. So I'd walk from 10th and Morrison over to 22nd and Gleason and practice with the band that I got in 1961. And spend the afternoon there. And then we'd go play gigs. We had a 55 Cadillac convertible. Had to be a convertible because we had an upright bass. And we couldn't get it in anything but a van or a pickup. So we went to all the Jewish community centers. I remember we got $5 a piece and all the spaghetti you could eat. But we played. I got a picture at home of us playing for about a 62 or 3 after game dance at Tigard High with that little band. That was a lot of fun. We played all over the place. And again, young, 14, 15 years old.
So you're living in Tualatin now, and
Yeah, moved here in 2001, back up to the subdivision. It was prior. My dad had passed away. Actually, my dad passed away. I think it was in 2000, 2001, right about the same time we moved here. My mom was living. They built another house in Sherwood, and she'd been living up there, but it was just too much for her. So we moved her down into the subdivision, into a house. And then I had a little tiny house, and my wife-to-be had a little tiny house in Oregon City. And Mom said, why don't you move over here? I'll make you a deal on one of the houses in the subdivision. So we picked one out, sold both the other 2 houses, and moved here in 2001. And I've been here ever since. So other than having an ongoing frustration with the city of Tualatin, everything's been pretty nice.
so even though it's a very different community now than it was when you were growing up, but
It's absolutely totally different now. Yeah, nobody knows anybody now. I mean, it's very impersonal.
what is it, 26,000 residents, I think?
Yeah, something like that. I don't know. I don't keep track. But the traffic is horrid. They haven't done anything for traffic. They've turned the road behind my house into a freeway, which was not even a road when I moved in. And they've turned it into a freeway, and I got a petition from everybody that lives along Southwest 95th to put up stop signs at Sagert, or to ask the police to enforce the traffic laws. They have done nothing. That was 2 years ago. I even had the principal of the grade school sign on because he said that somebody's going to get killed up there. Well, it's not an issue now because they've closed the school, so nobody's going to run over a school kid. But it's stuff like that. Yeah, they just don't. It just doesn't seem to be any concern really for the overall atmosphere of the city. I'm a little frustrated with it. It's just not the same. I don't know anybody. I know the lady at the post office. Yeah, you used to know. I used to go to Hannigan's. Ricky, how you doing? Sit, shoot the breeze. None of that goes on anymore. It's just very impersonal now. Everybody's just worried about themselves. And again, I've got this racetrack behind my house, and it's just, how fast can you go in a quarter mile downhill? So that's a little frustrating.
Well, I know what you should do. You should join the Historical Society, because there's still, there are people involved here who have lived here a long time or did live here for many years. And so
Yeah, I've thought about that, but I mean, my problem is I'm really not good at joining. For example, Ed Casey, who's been involved around here a long time, very, very active. He said that the city of Tualatin had a senior housing committee formed, group of people, and he said, real estate, and Tualatin, and he said, we're trying to figure out how to get more affordable housing for seniors in the city of Tualatin. He says, I'd love to have you on the committee. So I went to one committee meeting where we had, I think it was the city manager and the city planning director come as guests. And we sat down and they started talking, and the first thing they said was, the biggest problem we have is that the city is full. We have no more ground available to build any housing. What we are going to have to do is, the only way we can expand or do anything is to annex more property. So they're looking at out by Coffee Creek, Stafford, different directions that they can go in. So the first thing they said was there's no room to build anything. So then we start to have a discussion about senior housing. And, you know, I mean, I sat there and listened to everybody. And then I said, why are we discussing senior housing? There's nowhere to put it. They just said there's no room. Well, why are we even here? And then some local builder guy that I've known for many, many years, he said, well, the problem is we need to start going out and converting all these houses to handicap. That's the problem. And I just went, okay. Got up, meeting was over, and I think the gal that was putting it on, she said, well, thank you for coming and I appreciate your input. I said, yeah, well, he's got all the answers. You know, because he basically said, oh, whatever these guys are talking about is not important. What's really important is that we put a handicap driveway and a handicap sidewalk in front of all the houses, which solves nothing. But there's no room for senior housing. There's no room for additional housing in Tualatin. So anyway, I left and I didn't go back. I'm not good at that kind of an environment. I don't, you know, like the Tualatin Crawfish Committee, I did that for many, many years. And then it just got so political and, you know, everybody's got their own self-interest, and I do, me included. But, you know, the city council said we're not interested in supporting the Crawfish Festival anymore. Stuff like that, and so you just get frustrated. You know, okay, from now on you need to provide your own toilet paper for the restrooms, and we're not gonna have the park people clean the restrooms anymore. You have to do that, and the parade has to go around 1 square block in downtown Tualatin, around the old dog food factory remains, stuff like that. Well, that's not a family parade, so yeah. So I don't pull well in double harness like that. So I just,
well, but you are good at telling stories about Tualatin and telling your experiences here, and I really appreciate.
It's been a fun. I mean, it's been a fun town. I really like Tualatin. It's been great. Yeah. But yeah, that's another problem. I have a rock and roll voice, so I'm very loud, and that doesn't go over well either. You're sitting in a meeting with people that are, you know, like this, and I say something and everybody thinks I'm mad because I'm very, you know, I'm loud, I'm direct. And the problem is I relate it to like a drag car, dragster. You know, it's got a torque converter on it and a stall, and you have to get it up to 2,500 RPM before it works, and that's kind of like my throat. I gotta get, you know, you need like a half a pound of pressure to talk. I need like 2 pounds now because my vocal cords are, you know, well used. So
well, this has been good for this, though, and we really appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate what the Historical Society has done. I mean, I love the building. I was in the Cubs. I went to Methodist Church, and I was in the Cub Scouts in this building, and fond memories. It was a lot of fun. It was great. I'm glad they saved it.
Yeah,
you know, it's been really cool.
Yeah, we are too. Okay, well, thank you so much.
Glad I could help.
Mark Gensman for coming and telling us.